Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Confidently Speak Up in Meetings for Introverted Women Leaders. I had a little technical hitch, that's why I'm on a bit late. The technical hitch was I hadn't selected LinkedIn and the Facebook group, so I was only broadcasting to YouTube, so I had to come off and start again. So I can see that people are joining now. Hello and welcome. Please say hello and let me know which part of the world you're watching this, you're joining from. I'll wait till a few more people come online. I'm expecting quite a few people to come online. So hello, Sherelle. It's lovely to have you here. So welcome to How to Confidently Speak Up in Meetings for Introverted Women Leaders. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Cecilia. Hello from sunny Loughborough in the Facebook group. Whilst we're waiting for more people to begin, how many of you saw the video of the council meeting? I can't remember the name of the council last week, which resulted in an argument where they shouted down the woman that was chairing the meeting. How many of you saw it? Hi, Marcia. Hi, Tanya. Hello from Prague. Yes, how many of you saw that video? And how would you have responded if you had been in a meeting like that where you were literally being attacked? How would you have dealt with that? Hello from Pennsylvania. Hello from Hanford. Oh, Jackie Weaver is the lady. Melanie said that they've got her on TV now. Yes, that was terrible. And to say that is the conduct that goes on in meetings, is it any wonder that some people get a bit stressed when it comes to meetings? We've got change agents in action, said that they would have left the meeting. Yes, because nobody deserves to be spoken like that in a meeting. It's unacceptable. So let's begin. How to confidently speak up in meetings for introverted women leaders. So when I did last week's session, I said that this week I would cover some practical tips on what you can do to be more confident speaking up in meetings. And what we're going to be covering, I'm going to be covering preparing the meeting before the meeting, how you can best prepare yourself beforehand. I'm going to be talking about before the meeting begins and what you can do so that you make yourself feel more at ease. I'm going to look at how you can feel more confident whilst you're in the meeting, and how you can be, if the nerves set in, what you can do to quickly calm yourself down. And so before I go any further, what are your challenges when it comes to speaking up confidently in meetings? Because speaking up in meetings is I find one of the biggest challenges that introverted women leaders tell me that they have, and men as well. And it's because of the way that meetings are conducted. They don't allow us to play to our strengths, because they are conducted in a way where it's on the spot responses that are required, which don't play to our thinking and reflective style that many introverts prefer. So I've got a comment here: risk of people thinking my ideas are rubbish. So that is one of the things. I always wait for the perfect time. That's another comment somebody has said. And often I find that people, or introverted leaders, will tell me that they're waiting to say something when they've got something of value to add. And it's not all the time that they have something to say. They don't want to speak just for the sake of speaking. They want to talk when they've got something of value to add. And so in order to be at your best in the meeting and to be more confident in the meeting about speaking up, do your preparation beforehand. So before the meeting, prepare as much as you can in advance. Go through the agenda, read any accompanying reports that go with the meeting, and go through the agenda and identify those topics that you want to discuss, that you've got a view on, so that when it comes to the meeting, you've done a lot of that thinking beforehand, so it'll be easier for you to respond in the moment. And if you know the people that are going to be at the meeting, you have conversations with them in advance of the meeting, so you can get an idea about what their views are on the meeting, and you can get a feel for how the meeting is going to go, what their perspectives are on certain things, so that you know that when you're in that meeting, you're better prepared. And preparing yourself beforehand can make a big difference. So a lot of my clients, oftentimes they get agendas at the last minute. Sometimes they don't even get agendas. But once they put this into practice, it makes things so much more easier, preparing in advance. Another thing that you can do is, before the meeting begins, get there early. And that way you can start to speak to people before the meeting begins. Oftentimes it's because you're going to a room of people and you maybe don't know them very well, and you've not had a chance to make yourself feel at ease. So by getting there early, you can speak to people, build up that rapport, so that when the meeting does begin, you're feeling more comfortable. And I know, because of many of us working from home, we're not having face-to-face meetings, you can still do the same in the virtual meeting. If it's possible, don't get there at the last minute, get there a little bit earlier, and then you can start having conversations with people before the meeting begins. And when you're in the meeting and the conversations are starting, often you may find that if you're one of the first to speak up and say something, it makes it easier. So rather than sitting and waiting until everybody has spoken, try and get in as early as you can in terms of saying something, and then you may find that is easier for you as well. Because oftentimes it's when you're waiting that the nerves can kick in, the anxiety can kick in, but by speaking as early into the meeting as you can, then you've got it over and done with, and then it's a lot easier to then continue to speak. And then once you're in the meeting and you find that your confidence goes, or you become nervous, what then happens is, when you start to feel anxious, then you start to worry about it, and you're thinking you may be thinking the worst possible thing, or people might not listen to what I've got to say, or I might say something completely stupid. And then because you're thinking in that way, that is going to make you feel even more anxious. And then when you're feeling anxious, what may happen is you don't perform to the best of your ability, and your confidence goes, and then you might start to try and rush what you want to say because you're feeling so anxious. But just by slowing yourself down and telling yourself, I haven't got time to worry about this right now, I'm going to worry about it later. And then by doing that, you're delaying the worrying, you're delaying that feeling anxious, and just focus on being in the moment and what you want to say. And don't feel that you have to hurry up your words, because often people do that as a way of, they think by speaking quicker, they get it over and done with. But then by doing that, it can come across as you're not appearing confident. So slow things down a bit and just pause if you need to. And I talked about the power of the pause last week. So use pauses if you need to, and just take deep breaths. People don't have to see you taking deep breaths. Just take a few deep breaths. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Do that a few times until you start to calm down. and speak and say what you want to say. And by doing that, you will feel a lot more confident. And we're very much led by our emotions, and we act and behave according to how we're feeling. So if you're feeling anxious in the meeting, and if you're feeling and worrying about the worst possible thing, that is going to, you're either not going to speak, or when you do speak, because you're feeling so anxious and you're so well took with it all, you're not going to speak to the best of your ability. So delay the worrying and tell yourself, I haven't got time to think about this right now. I will worry about it this evening when I'm home, when I'm relaxed, and then I'll go over it. And then chances are, because you've got through it and it went okay, when it comes to the evening, everything is fine. And this is something that you have to practice and have develop the awareness of when you're starting to feel anxious. So before you actually get to a state where you've got so caught up in a knot, whether it's a tight knot in your stomach, whether it's a tension in your shoulders, whether it's a headache, whether it's that your heart starts beating faster, when you start to notice those physiological symptoms, just take a moment to calm yourself, to pause, and to be in the moment rather than worrying and letting your mind race ahead to the worst possible outcome. Because we often imagine the worst possible outcome, but the reality is that it doesn't always happen. And even if it did happen that you said something that you didn't want to say, what could you do? You could just say, oh, excuse me, and then continue. But the more you focus on the worst possible outcome, the worse that you're going to feel. And if you're speaking and somebody then throws something at you and puts you on the spot and you're not sure how to respond to it, just give your best response based on your experience, your intuition, the evidence to hand, and just say, these are my initial thoughts, but if I have anything further to add, then I'll get back to you. And by doing these things, it will help you to feel more confident. It will help you to be yourself. So don't go in there thinking that you have to put on a persona, you have to act like your extroverted colleagues who have the ability to speak on the spot and process their thinking while they're speaking, if that is not you. Utilize your strengths. I talked about last week about utilizing your strengths. So utilize your strengths and do it in a way that feels comfortable for you so that you feel more confident at it. So I've talked about preparing and planning in advance of the meeting. I've talked about before the meeting and speaking to people before the meeting so that you get to know people, you get to build up that rapport so you feel more comfortable going into the meeting. I've talked about speaking up early, so being one of the earlier speak up in the meeting, the easier it is for you. I've talked about if you find that your nerves go in the meeting, you find that you start to get into a panic, just calm yourself and tell yourself you haven't got time to think about this right now. You will worry about that later. Right now, I'm just focusing on getting through this meeting. If people put you on the spot and ask you a question and you're not quite sure how to respond, just give your best answer and let them know that you will get back to them later if you've got anything further to add. And if you do all these things, as I've said, it will get easier to speak up and be more confident about it. And the biggest thing that I find that causes people to lack confidence in meetings is that because of how they're feeling. If you can manage that, manage your emotions and manage how you feel, that will change how you act and behave in the meetings. You'll feel more confident and you'll act and behave more confident. And if you're someone who chairs meetings, then be mindful of everybody in the room and the different personalities in the room, the different thinking styles in the room, so that you give everybody an opportunity to say what they want to say. And if you're not chairing meetings, if you are able to influence whoever chairs your meetings, then have a word with them. And if you find that your meetings are something like the ones that we were talking about earlier, where people are getting shouted down, use your influence to change how those meetings are conducted, because it's not fair that people get treated like that in meetings. Meetings are a place where people come to bring ideas, they come to discuss, they come to find solutions, and it's only fair that everybody gets an opportunity to say what they want to say. So if you're able to influence the way that meetings are conducted in your organization, then make people aware about, because a lot of people aren't aware about the different styles or the preferences of people who are introverted. Make them aware of that the introverts typically like to think and reflect before speaking. Right, I'm just going to check to see if there are any questions and have a look at the comments and see what people are saying. Right, so Oluwatara has said, I learned to try and speak up earlier, so they ask questions and it makes it easier for me. Yes, that is a good thing. By speaking up earlier, it makes it easier for you. Susan says, I found that speaking up is sometimes the only way to plant an idea, even if someone else ultimately gets credit for it. Thank you for that. Another comment, when I am with a team that just shoot things down, it's more difficult, but I begin with asking a question and throw in my opinions. Great. Yeah, and those are great things to do. And so it's about understanding yourself, understanding how you are when you are at your best, and having that awareness so that you know that how you naturally are when you go into meetings, and you know that if you want to be at your best in a meeting, that you have to do certain things so that you can perform at your best, you can be more confident as well. And the more you practice doing these things, the easier it gets. It may never be the case that you will walk into a meeting of people full of people that you don't know and you don't have nerves. That's natural. But if you can minimize the effect of feeling nervous and you can be more confident, then you will feel better and you will perform better. I've got a comment here. I arrive early to meetings for the reason you mentioned, and it really helps me. Great. Yes. Getting there early so that you can get a feel for the people, build up that rapport, makes it easier than just going into a room of people that you don't know and then just being thrown on the spot. So any questions before I just sort of summarize what we've covered? Any questions? I'm also waiting for questions to come through. And if I could add, so going back to when I talked about when the nerves kick in and you start to maybe panic a bit or you start to feel anxious, and I talked about just slowing things down, delaying the worrying by telling yourself you haven't got time to worry about this, you'll worry about it later. And sometimes what happens, because of how you're feeling, some people will start using apologetic talk. And when I talk about apologetic talk, I mean that, oh, I'm sorry, but, excuse me, but, which doesn't come across, it doesn't instill confidence in other people. So be mindful if that is something that if you use apologetic talk, be mindful that when you're feeling anxious or when your confidence is low, that might be something that happens to you. So be aware of that. I've got a question here. What happens when you ask a question and it's ignored? You push for an answer without alienating others, especially if they are senior people. So what you can do if it's being ignored, you could say it again, but say maybe say it more firmly, or you can sort of just hold a hand up and say, "Excuse me," in a firm, loud voice, not shouting, but loud and firm. "Excuse me." Or even stand up. Some people, they stand up just so that they can get the attention of people in the room. Or, you know, you could just sort of put your hands on the table and lean forward like that and say, "Excuse me," or hello, I haven't finished yet. If someone's interrupting you, excuse me, I have not finished yet. Or if you just put your hands on the table and lean slightly forward and just repeat yourself, but repeat it firmer, more assertively, and a bit louder. A client of mine who have been working with on this, one of the things that she found hard to do was to be assertive in meetings. And when there were people, particularly more senior people, she found it more challenging. But what she's done is developed her assertiveness so that when she's in the meetings now, she is speaking more assertive. She's being more clear and concise about what she wants and what she's expecting of people. And she's noticing a big difference. Right, I've got a comment here from Cecilia. As a teacher, I find it difficult to speak to people I don't know. But in most institutions and managers, even women, tend to put you on the spot or make you feel bad or put you down because you are always on top of your game. What should you do in these cases? Right, so if you think about what I said about being led by our emotions, so you can choose how you respond to when somebody speaks to you in that way. So if somebody is putting you on the spot and making you feel bad, you can choose not to let that make you feel uncomfortable. You can choose how you respond to it. So how would you normally respond to something like that? So when they said something, you just challenge your thoughts and beliefs about that situation, about that environment, and you know yourself. You know if you're good at what you do, you can just stay calm, and you don't rise to. It's easy to sort of then go on the defense, but just maybe ask yourself, well, what could be the reason why they're saying that? And if you're not sure why they said what they said, you could ask them to give an example or to give some specific a specific example as to what makes them say that. But you choose how you respond to what people say to you, and this by when somebody says something to you which causes you offence, how choosing to acknowledge what they said to you, but choosing not to let that make you feel like you're not good enough or to knock your confidence. Most times I take notes and then email them personally and have a conversation with them about it, like what you said, because they may not even realize what they're doing. They may not realize the effect that it's having as well. Any more questions? I've got a comment here. It does get easier if you keep doing it more. I couldn't talk in meetings years ago, but now I feel more confident. And yes, by putting into practice these things that I've suggested, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more confident you become. So I'll just go through once more. Prepare and plan for the meeting. The more preparation and planning you can do your thinking beforehand so that when you are in the meeting, it's easier for you to respond. Before the meeting, get there a bit earlier so that you can speak to people, you can build up rapport so it doesn't feel as uncomfortable going into a room and speaking to people that you don't necessarily know. In that moment, when you feel that your nerves have kicked in and your confidence is wavering and you're starting to get anxious and you're starting to imagine the worst is going to happen, just pause and tell yourself, I haven't got time to worry about this right now. I'll worry about this evening when I get home. Right now, I'm focusing on getting through the meeting. And slow down, don't speed up, which is what we tend to do, but slow yourself down and just continue to speak assertively. And if somebody asks you a question and you don't know how to respond, if they put you on a spot and you're caught unaware, just give your best answer and tell them, this is what I think. However, if I've got anything further to add, I'll get back to you. Okay, so that's it for today. If you've got any further questions, then I will look through the comments, or if you're in the High Achieving Introverted Women Facebook group, then I can answer your questions in there. If you're in the high achieving introverted senior women LinkedIn group, then I'll answer your questions in there. So until the next time, bye.